So you've been a reporter for a long time, you've been in media for a long time, but you're new to being a business owner, to launching something like Status Coup. So, what are kind of the struggles you've gone through leading up to this? And I'll ask you a follow-up question after you kind of unload about that.
Um, well, the bottom line is, as I always say, it's the money, Lebowski. So when you have to, I have zero doubt about my vision. I don't say that arrogantly at all. I just know what my vision is for this company and this kind of journalism has an audience, and it will succeed. That I don't have any doubt about in terms of if we have the money to do it. So I didn't have to worry about the money, when I was at the Young Turks and other companies, because I worked at a company and they had to worry about the money. So I think that's been the part that is definitely learning experience, because I am not somebody who's going to kiss the ring of even people that I am aligned with politically. I don't like having to spend my time sending emails to people, working on business plans. It's not because I can't do it and I can't learn to do it. I'm not a patient person, which I honestly think is part of why I'm fairly good at what I do, because I'm driven and I'm very focused. So I don't like to get detoured on logistical things, shall I say. But those logistical things are what are needed to carry out the vision. So I think the difficult thing for me is seeing the road, but not yet having the car to drive on that road. And the car is the funding. So, we're not going to take shortcuts, obviously. We're not going to sell out and, go umbrella ourselves in another corporate company or do that. I'd rather just get out of journalism altogether. But that's been the most difficult thing. And also, I've never really dealt with such digital suppression. When I was at the Young Turks, TYT Politics was a brand new channel, so it didn't really have a following, but I wasn't being throttled on YouTube. So like people, when I went live, generally saw it in their feeds, and they could choose if they want to watch. Whereas when I was starting my own channel, I was noticing like, wait a minute, subscribers are going way up, but views are going down, like significantly down. And when I'm live, I'm live to like 50 people, yet I know YouTube enough to know if your subscriber base is at like, now it's more, but I think at the time, like maybe 10 to 15,000, you should be going live more than 50 people. So that was frustrating, because I was complaining to you at the time, like, how are we going to succeed up against like a boogeyman that is the corporate censor?
Right.
But, we're getting around it. I think it's nothing to sneeze at. We're almost at 22,000 subscribers, and it's a lot of work. This is a lot more work than I worked hard at TYT, don't get me wrong, but this is, there's no days off, really. There's no days off. You know that because you're doing the job of 20 people. And that's what's frustrating. Knowing how to get to where I want to go, but not having the resources yet.
On the other side of things, what are you proudest of so far with our efforts with Status Coup?
I think I'm most proud that the audience is still there, because when you leave a mega company, TYT is a corporation, right? And they're very well known. They are, by followers and subscribers, the largest online news network in the world. So when you leave that, obviously, we don't need to get into the whole story, but not by choice. But when you leave that to start your own thing, it's hit or miss if you're going to have an audience follow you, So it gives me even more confidence in the vision for the stories, because it really wasn't, as I do appreciate the opportunity I get at TYT, but it really wasn't TYT that got me the audience as much as the stories I chose, the way I did it. That's what people want. Honestly, it's not even about me, really. I've always said Status Quo is going to have to be a lot bigger than me because one person can't take on a entirely corrupt system. So Bernie says that all the time, you know. It's going to require more reporters, more researchers, more producers, whatever. So I'm just proud that the audience, for the most part, I mean, listen, I don't have the subscriber count that I did there, but it's also, you know, we've been very suppressed. We barely have money as far as going out. So the fact that we've been able to raise, we're live now on this GoFundMe marathon, so hopefully we're getting towards 15,000. But $15,000, actually we've raised more than that. We've raised like between 14,000 and 15,000 for the GoFundMe, but we've raised money when we were out in Virginia and Flint, generous contributions on PayPal. We have paid subscribers on Patreon, and we're going to be shifting over, keeping our patrons, but also inviting paid members once we get that going. So I'm just proud that we've been able to do that. And I say we because, let's be honest, I would not be here without you. And I think that the faults that I have seen from people I've worked with in the past, I'm not talking about anyone in particular, is sometimes you start buying your own bullshit to the point you think you're the reason for the success. And that's dangerous. And that's how businesses fail. Because you have to realize that you might have a special talent and you might have certain skills, but we would not be in this position if not for you. I don't know a damn thing about marketing. Mm-hmm. I don't know a damn thing I'm not an organized person, as you know. I know you got to know what you know. You got to know what you're good at and lean on the people that are good at the stuff you're not. So that's what I'm proud of. And also, I mean, let's be honest here. You know, it was a bit of a rough go of it towards the end of last year. So to come out of that, because when that happened, I did not, you were there, so you could attest. I did not see almost a year, like I guess that whole period of time is now, we're coming on a year anniversary. I did not see a new company. I did not see raising money. I did not see a YouTube channel having any following. I just saw like, holy shit, I'm going to have to like go work at my parents' jewelry store. Go shoot me. So yeah, I'm proud. And proud's not the right word, honestly. I'm just grateful because I've learned the hard way, not just what happened with me at the end of TYT, but before that. I mean, I was being smeared by right wing, by the Neera Tanden crowd. Falsehoods travel so quickly on the internet. You know, lies become truth in 10 seconds. That's a whole separate discussion. But I'm just very grateful that there's a smart, passionate group of people out there that follow actions instead of words.
Right. And not because I want to hear nice things about myself, but why have you chosen, you know, I'm co-founding this with you. I'm president of the company. Why have you chosen to work with me? And then we have Ty, cameraman, editor, photojournalist,
paraplegic.
Oh, poor Ty is not feeling well right now. Yeah. And documentarian. Why have you chosen the two of us to start this with?
To me, it's not as important that somebody has the skills I need right off the top. I could teach some things. It's more important to me that they share the vision. Because I think when you are in organizations, media or otherwise, and you're with people that don't believe the same things, obviously everybody has different personality traits. But if you don't have the same operating principle for what is the most important, and in this case, what are the stories we should cover, what are the places we should go, what are the stories we should not cover, which is equally as important, then you just have a bunch of discombobulation, and you know it's not a good core. And I've had that in the past. And honestly, at TYT, I had differences with certain people there about what should be covered and what shouldn't. So I think why I wanted you is because you do share that vision, and you're kind of a sappy person, and you obviously you take to heart these stories. And I think sometimes I need that. You know, I think I've kind of gotten a tougher shell because I've seen all this over and over again. So it's not surprising to me, this misery and corruption. But I need people around me that make sure I stay, human's the wrong word, but I stay not so, that I don't get so rigid that, you know, like that. I also think if you could match that, having people around you that share the vision with having people around you that are smart and know what they're doing, then you are way ahead of the game. Because I'm not going to get into who, but I brought people in because they shared the vision, but they did not have the skills.
At a previous.
Right. I brought people into certain things that, for the most part, shared my vision, but they really didn't share, have the skills I needed. And because I delegated too much, you know, it didn't grow the way it should have. And I also think that with you and Ty, we could have disagreements, but I never have to worry about whether we're all coming from a good place. You know, I know you're coming from a good place. I know you bleed this as much as I do. I know Ty does as well. So that's why. And honestly, I would rather, obviously we want to grow. We want to hire other people, reporters, producers, editors. I definitely want to hire other reporters because I do mean it. Some people think it's about me. It's really not. To me, the most wildly successful version of this is me eventually moving to the background and catapulting other people. I'll never like be totally gone, but like this company is not going to succeed with me as the face and the only face. No. We need other faces, other voices, and people that are aggressive. But I think, you know, we are going to be lean and mean for a while because that's just what we have to do. Because people should know when I'm pushing that GoFundMe, you know, 20 times on the live stream, it's because this shit ain't cheap. And doing real journalism, it's not cheap. And that's why few do it.
Yeah. And so the other component of this, other than you, me, Ty, is the audience. And you've mentioned in the past that you really want Status Coup to have a community feel, to be a true community. So what does that look like?
A community is you cover what the community needs you to cover. You know, obviously, we're going to decide some things that is just because we think it's important. But I really feed off of what the audience wants. And I think part of why I guess at TYT picked stories that resonated is because I got those stories from real people, you know? I mean, Flint obviously was covered, but actually the first time I went to Flint was after all the cameras left. And the reason I chose to go there is because at a conference, what was it? The People's Summit. So the first year, which wasn't a big thing at that point. It was the first year. I interviewed somebody from Flint, and I had never been to Flint. And she said to me after the interview, like, the media has abandoned us, and it's so much worse than it was even in January when all the cameras were there. And like, if you can, you have to go. And I would have not decided to go to Flint if I didn't talk to that one person, you know? Same thing in East Chicago. I was in Chicago covering a conference that I didn't want to cover, but I was told to cover in Chicago. And a viewer messaged me on Facebook, which sometimes you yell at me for being too open, which you're probably right about. I definitely am a little too open with people. But anyway, a viewer messaged me an article that there was this lead problem. And usually when there's a lead problem, it's not a problem. It's usually a disaster and the media is just minimizing it. So I skipped the Chicago conference that day and I went to East Chicago, Indiana, which was about 40 minutes or so away. And it was a complete disaster. But again, I got that from a viewer. Standing Rock, when I first went, wasn't trending. It wasn't anything. It was, I think there was maybe 2,000 people at the camp. I went because I got messages from people on Facebook that were viewers. So I think that when I say community, I mean, as the audience grows, obviously the live chat is going to move faster. But I like knowing, I like seeing the same people in the live chat. I want to grow it, obviously, and expand to new audiences. But I want a community where we're talking with the audience. where we're constantly getting feedback from the audience. I'm not talking about like just reading their comments on air, but like I want the, how do we pick our stories? Well, I'm not all over the country. I'm right now in New York. So how do I know what the hell's going on around the country unless you tell me? So it takes vetting because sometimes people send you things that are just batshit crazy and you don't want to invest money to go there when it's not factual or whatever. And sometimes people send you things not maliciously, but they really think it's true. At Standing Rock, I was pretty much chasing down tips activists gave me all day, and 75% of it, the time, it didn't pan out. Not because they didn't genuinely think it was true, but when you're covering movements and things like that, a lot of false stuff spread around. So you have to become good at like sorting through that. And I've been burned. I've reported shit that wasn't right, and you got to put egg on your face and just correct it. So when I say community, I mean I want to get tips from the audience. I want to know what's going on in their neck of the woods. I will always prefer being in the field than bloviating from my apartment. Obviously, we're all humans, so we all need time to have a life. I like being home a little bit so I could see family and hang out with friends and date and those kinds of things. But my heart is not sitting here. It's being out there. So that's the community. Always having a pulse on what the people want. And I think not just the Young Turks, but other places I've worked, in some cases, lost track of their audience's pulse. And sometimes you lose track when you don't get out there in the field enough. So.
Yeah, I think that really makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what sets our audience apart from others. What do you think are the best ways the audience can like make themselves part of Status Coup, whether it be story ideas or just helping us grow?
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. Financially is right now key because, bottom line, there's a lot of things you need as far as marketing, which require money. It's a shame that in this country to file freedom of information requests, which get you information to expose corruption, a lot of times they're sending you back a quote for $4,000 to $5,000 to give you that information, which is totally corrupt, and that's an entirely different conversation. So financially, that's first and foremost right now. But at the same time, the audience we're talking to isn't rolling in it. So we're going to have to be creative in other ways because we can't expect this audience, our business model long term is not going to be GoFundMe, right? That's just seed money right now. But I think really what I need from the audience is to show up. It feeds me. It energizes me. It's a lot better. Doing live streams or going out and doing live streams to like 200, 250 people rather than 30 to 50 people. Psychologically, like how many times have I gotten off a live stream in the early days when like 50 people were watching and called you and I'm just like, oh, this fucking,
Yeah.
It's not because I'm vain. It's because I want more people to hear these stories. I want to get these stories out to more people. So I think showing up, because the more, and it's not the audience's fault because half the time they don't even know when we're live, which is a whole different discussion. But I think showing up, if you can't contribute financially, we keep saying it, and it's not a bumper sticker. We mean it, sharing the content, because we need to work around the suppression. So part of that is sharing the content. And then other parts, like eventually, we don't have the bandwidth for this now. Eventually, we're going to want little meetup communities in a lot of different communities, Status Coup armies, wherever we go. Because one of the difficult things for me is, perfect example, I just went down to Dallas to cover the murder of Botham Jean, a 26-year-old. Basically, now you just call it murdered while living black. He was in his apartment and a white cop just showed up and shot him dead. But when we go into these communities, like I don't have any contacts in the activist community in Dallas. I don't have any sources there. So it's kind of like you're dropping in, and before you even get any interviews, you're just trying to figure out like who's who and how do I get their contact information and how. So I think that's helpful too, like setting up little community Status Coup. I don't know what you would call it, but little meetups and armies to help us get to the people and get to the story before we get there. Because we're not asking for money for the hell of it. We are going to be getting out into the field. You and me are going out this week on a big story. So that's helpful. And the other thing, honestly, is always, I believe this for anybody, including us, always hold us accountable, always hold us accountable and make sure we are doing things the right way. Because sometimes, I don't think it's happened yet, but sometimes even we might lose sight of what we're doing. So you got to be held accountable. I've seen the businesses that I've worked for that have started not doing well is when you get so full of it and so buying into your own bullshit that you lose track of the audience. And that's when you start going downhill.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions that I have for you, Mr. Jordan.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer, and keep keeping on.
Thank you.